Hey everyone, my name is Michelle and I'm here at Pasadena Humane in the Community Programs Department. If you haven't joined us before, welcome. And if you have joined us before, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about cat photography with renowned cat photographer, Erica Danger. Erica, where'd you go?
I'm here.
There she is. So everyone meet Erica Danger. How are you this afternoon?
Oh, I'm great. It's beautiful and sunny out here in Oakland, and I'm happy to be here. So excited to talk to everybody.
Yeah, it's sunny and warm down here in Southern California. So yes, we've all got some great weather going on.
I hope so.
So, um, so right now I'm going to go over some webinar reminders in case there's anyone who hasn't been with us before. Oops. Sorry about that. I clicked the wrong button, guys. So like I said, these are our webinar reminders. Okay, this is an audio-visual presentation. So even though you can see and hear us, we can't see or hear you. So if you've got any questions, please use the question box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will ask those questions as time permits. If you can, save your questions for the end because Erica may address them during her presentation. So like I said, today we are talking with Erica Danger about cat photography, and hopefully you don't let your cats chew on your cameras. In a couple of weeks, we will be talking with Dr. Cash from Base Paws about cat genetics. And later on in July, we'll be talking with our very own Chris Ramon, Chris the Cat Guy, and the Community Cat Podcast about trap, neuter, return, and monitor. This webinar is recorded, so if you miss any portion of it or just want to go back and hear what Erica has to say again, just to double check your information, I will be sending this recording out to you guys tomorrow afternoon. If you enjoy this webinar and you want to make an impact, you can go ahead and use the donation link that is below, and I will drop that in the chat box as well. And without further ado, take it away, Erica.
Okay, hello. Let's see here. Let's get my screen up here. You probably don't need to look at my face for too much longer because the cats are the cuter part. Why does it do that every time? There we go. Okay, there's my presentation. I'm going to say goodbye to you for right now with my face so that you can have the cats be full screen. And here we go. So, welcome to Cat Photography 101, how to take perfect portraits of your cat. Like Michelle said, we're going to teach you all about taking photos of cats. So not just actually your cat only, but any cat, kitten, honestly, any other kind of animal pretty much too. So yeah, who the heck am I? Well, I am Erica Danger. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a professional pet photographer. That's what I do. Yes, that's my real job, and yes, that is my real name. I also photograph humans, dogs, and lots of other subjects, but cats are definitely my favorite subjects to work with. I mean, who doesn't love a cat? You're all here because you love them, right? I've been photographing cats professionally since about 2015, after about a decade of photographing mostly humans and doing lots of like live music and some product stuff and that sort of thing. I still love that stuff, but photographing animals, like I said, it's my favorite. And it's actually not much more challenging for me, but there is a little bit of a learning curve. So the trick is understanding animal body language and psychology and finding out what works best for each individual pet. We'll touch on a lot of this stuff as we go through the presentation. But these are skills I've honed through training in cat and dog behavior and years of handling and photographing hundreds of animals, maybe thousands. I don't know. I haven't kept track, of course, but both in their homes and in shelter environments. So I've had my work displayed in galleries. This is just a quick little thing about me, and featured both inside and on the covers of a variety of magazines, books, calendars. In fact, actually the next issue of Catster, which will be out in like a month or so, out on newsstands pretty soon, has another one of my photos on the cover too. I've also had my photos on billboards and blown up as part of some ridiculously huge art installations, which was super cool. Look how tiny I am. I have talked about my photography on TV, which is always super nerve-wracking, but fun. And you may have seen me as a vendor and presenter at a cat convention near you. That's actually me chatting with Pasadena Humane's very own Sarah Iyer at my CatCon booth a couple years ago, right in the middle there. You can see her little purple hair. Okay, cool. So all these accomplishments are awesome and I'm super, super proud of them. Of course, it's a very fun career and I love what I do. But there are a couple of other things that really make taking cat photos rewarding for me. So let's do a little poll. Why are we taking photos of cats? What are some good reasons that you should get good at taking photos of cats?
Right, and the poll is now on everyone's screen.
All right, guys, give that a quick answer.
Yeah. So I like taking glamour shots of my cat, personally. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll.
All righty, guys.
And now, so Erica,
what do people have to say?
So it's all across the board, but the most popular answer is helping shelters and rescues to save cats.
The correct answer, there was no correct answer. It's all of those things. I should have read those out loud for you, so just to make it a little bit easier. But you can take glamour shots of your cat. You can impress folks all across your spectrum of people that you know, and you can, of course, help shelters and rescues to save cats. So how the heck are you going to do that? Let's see. Whoops, it jumped ahead. Here we go. So you can take pictures of foster kittens. What I really love and what is truly rewarding for me are the two things: creating photos of beloved pets that families will treasure forever, like whether they're of foster cats and kittens, or they're already established in folks' homes. And then number two is using my photography to help cats, kittens, and any other animals. So when you're really good at taking photos of animals, you can use those skills to showcase foster cats and kittens like these guys. Some of these are my own. Some of these are foster kittens that were being fostered by friends of mine. And you can do the same thing. It can also be fosters that also are in the same organization as you, but who maybe don't have like the, they don't have the skills or the equipment to take really great photos of their own fosters themselves. You can also help to take photos of adoptable pets within the rescues and shelters who are just there, who might need really pretty photos, because honestly, most of these organizations don't have a full-time photographer on staff, which means that adoption profile photos, sometimes they're not the best. It's just whoever took it whenever they could, and you know, they got what they got, and it might be a little dark or blurry or whatever it might be. Or the animal was just really scared when they came in on intake, and now that it's been a few days, they're a little bit more comfortable. That's really what it's about, is getting great photos. Not just photos, but great photos where it's quality and the animal looks happy and engaged and cute, you know? So this also includes cat cafes, which are super fun, but also almost all the cat cafes that are here in the US are also full of adoptable cats that can always use their own glamour shots. So they function as rescues as well in most cases, or they partner with rescues. I'm sure there's some that are not full of adoptable cats here in the US, but all the ones I know of are, and they're great. You can also take photos at adoption fairs, fundraisers, other types of events that organizations put on. All these types of photos are useful for organizations to use for their websites, for their social media, newsletters, even advertising sometimes, whether that's in magazines or like the billboard you saw, that sort of stuff. They will probably ask your permission first, but you know, donate your time however you feel is appropriate. Because beautiful and engaging images can help them to raise more money for the animals. It can help them to encourage adoptions, help them find new fosters or other volunteers, and then also, of course, to promote future events that they have. That's a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of ways that you can help with having great quality photos, whether they're cats, dogs, or humans. It doesn't matter. Like, get good at it all. So we're here today to talk about how you can get better at taking photos of cats and other critters and help in those areas. Let's do another poll and see, before we start talking about this stuff, but let's see where y'all need the most help. So what are the most difficult parts about photographing cats for you personally? So go ahead and choose all that apply here. There's getting them to hold still, bad lighting, dealing with that, getting them to look at the camera, photographing black cats. That's a whole separate thing on its own, kind of. Finding ways to make the photos look truly interesting. So go ahead and, like I said, choose, well, it says select one of the following, but you can pick your top one. Honestly, they're all kind of difficult, and I get that.
Yeah, everyone is, the answers are still coming in, but everything seems to be about even. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now. But Erica, so our top two is getting them to hold still and getting them to look at the camera.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, those are the easiest ones. I don't know. They're all easy once you get good at it. But well, yeah, I loved this question. I wanted to gauge how do people, where is the biggest struggle so that we can really kind of hone in and focus on that. So today we are going to be talking about both cell phone cameras and shooting with cell phones and shooting with fancy digital cameras, because whether you take pictures with either or, you know, you can get great shots. We're going to cover a lot that will be applicable either way. Some stuff that's more photography and editing tips, that sort of thing, and some that are more about cats and animals in general, that are kind of like behavior specific. And we will, of course, because most of us, even if we have a fancy digital or film camera, we also take photos on our cell phones all the time. They're right there in our pockets, so why wouldn't we? I will touch on a bunch of cell phone specific tips later on too, because who doesn't need that? So as long as you know how to use your equipment, you can't really beat the quality of a high-end digital SLR with a nice lens, like I said, but the convenience of having a smaller, actually pretty powerful camera in your pocket in the form of a cell phone, even if it's an older iPhone or whatever it might be, that's pretty amazing that it's right there in your pocket. Teenage Erica would not believe how far technology has come. It's amazing. Okay, so here we go. Let's get into it. The secret to cat photography is catnip. Not actually catnip, it's an acronym, but I wanted to be clever. Catnip will actually come into play a little bit later. We'll get to that. But the first part of catnip is clean and set the scene. And Michelle, if I accidentally almost skip over another one of those polls, jump right in and interrupt me, because I don't have like a slide for every single thing that will remind me, but we want to get those polls and have people chime in with their thoughts. So clean and set the scene. So this is actually a pretty good example. This photo here is of one of my past foster kittens. He is just sitting on a really plain blanket. There's some plants in the background kind of out of focus, but the focus is on him. He looks beautiful. Here's some other examples of a different foster kitten that I had named Cheeto, who went to a foster home with my friend, or not a foster home. He was adopted by my friend Sam. So on the left here, when I say clean and set the scene and let the focus be on the cat, sometimes people think I mean something as plain as this image here. Now, it looks great. He's kind of like, there's some cool contrast between his orange fur and this kind of tealy color, turquoisey shade behind him, but it doesn't have to be that plain. It can be like this photo on the right, where it's still got some like artwork in the back. There's some colors here. Cool light reflecting off of here. But what we did for these photos, so for this one, we just brushed the cat litter and the crumbs off of the cushion here, because, you know, we all have cats, and cat crumbs are real. They're everywhere. If there's an abundance of fur, cat hair just kind of matted to an area, that happens. Just kind of take a lint roller or brush it off, whatever works. In the background of this photo, I think what we did was like we moved like a hoodie that was draped over the couch. There was like an extra throw blanket that was too bright and I thought might be distracting. We'll talk about colors and balance a little bit later as well. I think we had like a cup or a glass or something on the table with a coaster. And then like, you know, some hairs and stuff that were showing up on the glass. So we kind of tidied up all that stuff so the focus could really be on Cheeto. And you can still, I didn't take away all the personality of Sam's decor. It's still in the background here and surrounding him, but you get to really hone in on him. My cat, she modeled for me yesterday. I wanted to add some slides to this that show you examples of, these are cell phone photos. I did no editing whatsoever to these. Now, she's sitting on the bed and there were these really beautiful rainbows coming in from like a rainbow sun catcher that I had in the window. The sun is not directly on her, but the rainbows are dancing around her and I thought that was really cute. However, I intentionally didn't bother to brush away all this crumbly mess that was here on the blanket. You know, like that's kind of, it's not the worst photo, it's not the messiest, it's not the grossest, of course. But if I had just taken like a lint roller, I mean, there's even some crumbs on her paw, like I could Photoshop that out, sure, but why would I do that when I could just take about 15 seconds to brush off the bed? You know, that would have made the photo that much better. Obviously, it's a cell phone photo. Sometimes your photos are just not going to be perfect, and that's okay. And this wasn't in the moment. She might have got up and run away if I had started brushing things off. But if you know you're about to sit down and take some really great photos of your cat, you might want to take the time to set the scene. Whoops, jumping ahead. This is another example of her. It's a cute photo because she's sitting there and she's all cute, but there's just cluttery junk in the background. I just moved and haven't put away everything, so this was not staged. I didn't collect a bunch of stuff. This was literally just already there. But as you can see, your eye, it goes to the package of greenies behind her and this Jurassic Park board game I have and all this other stuff. And you're kind of distracted from my cute little cat and how she's gazing out the window. So rather than photos like this, just take away the distractions as much as you can if you really want your photos to pop. Again, sometimes you can crop it, sometimes you can try just making do with what you have, but because it's a really cute moment you don't want to miss. But if, again, you want to really take your photos to the next level, you want to clean and set the scene. All right, now we're on to the next one. Always find your light. Normally I would start with this one and this would be like my number one first thing because always find your light is so important. This is the number one tip, but act nip is not the same as catnip. That sounds pretty dumb, so let's not get it twisted. This is a beautiful model named Juju that you can see here on the left. She's gazing out to the window. This is actually a photo that combines both natural light and a little bit of my my external flash that I use a lot of times. I'm not going to talk a ton about the external flash. That I could give a whole hour-long presentation about how to use that, honestly, but I will say that an on-camera flash or an on-phone flash is typically so harsh, and it takes a good few seconds, I'm sure you guys have all experienced this, for it to adjust and figure out what it wants to do and for it to go off, and by then your cat's moved or they've run out of the room or whatever. So don't even bother with that if you can avoid it. Just don't. An external flash, if you want to get better at using one, there's lots of information about that online, but try to just focus on getting better at using natural light first. We'll have some examples here. This is another cell phone photo. I'm going to talk about some bad natural lighting. Again, these are not edited in any way, shape, or form. Miss Mouse sat here, as you can see, kind of like, I'm not sure how the colors are going to look on your screen exactly because everybody's monitor, and like if you're watching this on a phone or a tablet, they're all slightly different as far as brightness and color calibration. But what I'm seeing on my end on a calibrated monitor here is like this natural light coming in from that window that you saw her sitting in before. There's kind of some bluish cast here, but I also had a normal inside lamp with kind of like a warmer tone to it right in front of her. And that's why you can see this weird, almost yellowy cast down here and here. You get this mixed temperature lighting. And there's some warm, there's some cool, there's some neutral stuff back here too. Now, normal sunlight is fairly neutral. We think of the sun as being yellow, but it's not. Like when you take a picture outside, it doesn't look like it's tinted any particular color when it's midday. Now, when it's the sunrise or sunset, or you get that golden hour, then the light's bouncing around the atmosphere a little bit different. Again, I can talk about that for hours, but generally daylight is more neutral. Inside tungsten lights is what they're called. Normal light bulbs are pretty yellow. If you can avoid it, don't mix your different color temperatures, your different types of lighting. If you have different kinds of light in your house and you fiddle around with LED lights and this kind over here and that kind over there, just use the light, natural light if you can, or only the inside lights that are all the same color temperature. And your naked eye will see pretty well when you're looking at them side by side what looks warmer and cooler. And just focus on making sure it's very even. Not trying to get too experimental about that sort of thing. This is where Miss Mao is backlit. She looks all dark and shadowy, but look at that bright, bright window. Now, there's a couple things about being backlit. Sometimes you can get cool artistic shots. I'm not saying that this doesn't ever work. Same thing with mixing color temperatures, but generally you're going to get a lot of frustration if you try to do this. Try to be on the other side with the light kind of over your shoulder, or the light being right on their side of them instead of directly behind them. Something else you're seeing here is a photography term right here, where a lot of times when it's something dark and something light and there's a lot of contrast with light, you get something called chromatic aberration. You don't have to remember that term, it's not important, but it's a weird color cast. Sometimes it's green or blue or purple that like outlines, especially if you get something like a tree against a really bright sky. That's what that is, and it's because of there's just limited stuff that a camera can do. You can take that out in post, but the best thing to do is generally just don't shoot something that's super that is super contrasty like that with backlighting. Also, she doesn't look as cute as she could if I had just another light in front of her. This one is also an example of clutter. As you can see, I mentioned I moved. I've just got junk all over my floor. I don't have enough cabinets and tables and such just yet, but we'll get there. So I could crop this, but that still wouldn't fix this crazy lighting situation. Again, I didn't edit this. When you shoot anything in direct sunlight, camera phones tend to, they try to fix it for you. And my camera in particular tried to make sure that her white fur wasn't super blown out while still capturing some of the midtones and shadows and all that stuff that were in the rest of the image. So it really did its best to compensate, but that gives her all these weird shadows and like funky bits all over her face that just, this isn't a great photo. Like, she's cute and all, but we can do better. And bright indirect light is going to be what's best. And I'll show you some examples of that here. Here's two great examples of bright indirect light. The one on the left here, I'll talk about these individually, but they were both shot on my actual digital camera. And these are two different clients. So this one is a guy named Leo that I photographed in Georgia. You can see it is that kind of golden magic hour, and this sunshine is coming in over on this side. Quick note, he is on a harness, but his fluff covers it. I don't recommend you just let your cat go outside for photos, but he does take supervised kind of evening yard time outside while on a harness and leash with his person. And we got those photos then, but his fluff covers a lot of it, and I photoshopped out anything that was visible. So, but Leo here, he is majestic and he loves to sit in all these different places, and you can see how beautiful this light was. There are some shadows or some shade provided by some trees over here, rather than putting him in the sun down at the bottom, him sitting on the chair and just having lots of natural light kind of bouncing around off of the light color of the house and from the sky. It just looks so beautiful and lets him truly shine. And look at these whiskers. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so in love with this guy. So this is actually a different cat, even though she's also a fluffy brown tabby looking friend. She is here. Her name's Miss Kitty Pretty Girl. I don't name these cats. She's looking out the window, just gazing. This is entirely natural light. I didn't use my external flash for either of these. And I did minimal editing. In fact, I even forgot to edit out some cat fur that was right here. It happens. So she's just gazing towards the light. And this is a better example of, remember how I was showing you Miss Mao in front of the window? This is a much better example of a cat in a window looking beautiful and the light being flattering. Wonderful. Here are some black cats for those of you who are like, oh man, how do I photograph a black cat? Well, I'm not going to cover all the things with black cats right now, but all of these tips play into it. The biggest thing, the biggest friend to your black cat is light. Natural light preferred. So both of these, again, are photographed completely with natural light, not really edited a whole lot, honestly, other than black cats do. I don't think that they're the most difficult to photograph at all. They're some of the easiest for me, but they are a little bit more time consuming to edit because they're what I call cat crumbs, like little dandruff bits or little like food crumbs or anything like that end up being a little bit more visible on them. So that's honestly the only editing I really did on this guy here. This is Kubrick. This is shot on my digital camera, my SLR, with a fancy lens. He's gazing towards the window. You can see you don't have to get a cat perfectly evenly lit for it to look great. I like this contrast between these highlights in his facial features and this shine in his eyes, and then kind of the darkness that falls off of his cheek. You can really see his cheekbone and his little whisker puff here, and you get to see like all this little shadowy detail. Now, a lot of times we'll get into color in just a little bit, but I would put a cat on a different color. Like this is a little scarf that he really likes to steal from his mom. It's the same color as him, so it makes for a more monochrome photo, which is really beautiful because then the focus gets to be on this yellow color in his eye. But another tip I have for black cats is to put them on a different color backdrop. If I'd shot him in a very dark room and there wasn't this white behind him, he would be totally lost, but you get this contrast at least from that. This is on my cell phone. This is an old foster kitten I had, Amelia. Now I didn't really style or stage this photo at all. I just, I peeled back the blanket in my old room and let her just sit there. And she happened to look kind of towards the window. Almost the same shot, really, just completely different cat. Same thing. I didn't really do a whole lot to this photo at all. I don't think I edited it at all. I usually don't with cell phone photos, but when you post them on Instagram, we'll get to that later, you totally can bring up shadows and brighten it a little bit, but you can't really fix a photo that is just beyond help. So it's great to start with something that is really, really nicely lit just to begin with. So the T in catnip is for tools of the trade. This is how you're going to get cats to look at you. This is going to be how you get cats to hold still, and this is where the magic really comes from. So what do I mean by tools of the trade? All this stuff. So now here's where we actually do talk about catnip. Real quick, let's have some trivia. Let's pull up a little question, a little poll. Which of these plants affect cats similar to catnip? Go ahead. Is it silvervine, valerian, honeysuckle, rose, or lemongrass? And it says select one of the following. The program we're using is a little bit limiting. There's more than one answer to this, so that's okay. Give you guys a couple. I'm gonna drink some water.
So we'll give it just a few more seconds, but we've got it kind of split into thirds between silvervine, valerian, and lemongrass.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, folks, I'm here to tell you that the answer is all of them but rose. Rose is a cat-safe flower. If you want flowers in your home, you can have some roses. There's lots of different cat-safe plants and ones that are not cat safe. So always do the research on that. But all of those other things, Silvervine and Valerian are probably two you've definitely heard of. Sometimes people's companies will sell blends that are catnip plus Silvervine or Valerian, but honeysuckle and lemongrass are also kind of like get your cat amped up sort of things. They don't, not all of these work on every cat though. So when I go to folks' houses, I have a kit that looks, it's absurd. My photo bag is camera lenses and an extra camera body and my main camera body and a bunch of different things like that that you would expect. But then I have a whole bevy of wands, magic wands like these, catnip spray, loose catnip in little jars. I have valerian, I have honeysuckle spray. I've got all kinds of stuff. And of course, treats. Now, I'm going to tell you a couple things. Treats and catnip are a little bit trickier to use to actually get them to look at the camera. I don't know if you've ever tried with a highly food motivated cat to get them to hold still while you use a treat to get them to look somewhere, but all they want to do is run towards the treat. And unless a dog is really obedience trained, it's the same thing with dogs. They're just so excited and they will run right towards that treat and you're not going to get a good photo in some cases. So I prefer to use treats as more trust building, and that works really, really awesome for folks who are photographing cats that are not their own, or if they're, you know, in a rescue situation, etc., or at a cat cafe, whatever it might be. Same thing with catnip. You can get some unpredictable results with what they do with catnip, but it can be really great to get them feeling good. Or if you want them to go sit on a particular chair because you think they'd look really beautiful there, spray some catnip spray on the chair and give them some time. Patience is a big part of it. You have to wait and make sure that they are ready for the photos. But there are these things that we can do to get them ready. Catnip in like loose dried form, that's also really fun. That can make for some really great photos. I'm sure some of you have seen my friend Andrew Martela's book, Cats on Catnip, where the cats are literally just like covered in catnip. You can do some fun stuff with that, but if you're only trying to do a subtle thing, it can be kind of look like crumbs and mess that you have to Photoshop out. Maybe it doesn't matter, maybe it does. It really just depends on what look you're going for. But my number one thing that I always go to are these wand toys. And you can, there's so much you can do with these. I've got a couple pictures of me using them. I buy them by essentially the case and I get them in all different colors. I wash them between clients, of course, because I don't want any cross contamination. I wipe all my camera equipment down. I'm very concerned with making sure there's no kitty colds or other communicable issues, diseases or sicknesses transferred between pets and clients. And that's something I've done since well before COVID. I've always been very conscious and concerned about that. So on the left here, we've got the cat that I'm photographing here in the middle, this little kitten. And then all these other ones are pretty entranced. Well, not you, but all the other ones are pretty entranced by me waggling this wand and getting Kitty to look at me. Real quick, with this external flash, you'll notice it's pointed upward and backward. That's because I don't want to point this flash at the cat and have it be blasting them in the face. So if I bounce this off of the wall and ceiling behind me, I'm going to get a more even, flattering light that really, really fills the whole picture. It's not going to be as stark. Now this one here, this is a cat that he just needed a little bit more time to get used to me before we dived right into taking pictures. Not every cat is just ready to go the second I walk in the door. In fact, most of them aren't. So we take some time to just play. And it looks like I'm having probably more fun than he is even, but he was loving this wand. Now going back to this, there are different kinds of wands. Not everybody likes the sparkle wand. Sometimes it's a little bit too noisy, so I have different ones that are a little more quiet. I've got this one here that's like a long fleece snake. I've got this one here that is what I call a Muppet tail. I don't think Muppets have tails, but maybe this is why. So you can use those to, like here, build trust with a cat, get them to have fun, get them to loosen up and feel like, oh, we're just playing. Cool, that's great. I love playing. Here is hopefully it loads. Okay, here is a video of me doing what I do. There's some flashing here. I should have warned. I'm so sorry if anybody has any issues with flashing lights. That's it. It's as simple as that. You can get her to look up, you can get her to look to the side, you can get her to look at the camera, just with where you direct their attention. And again, it really depends on the cat, what kind of wand you use, but that is my favorite technique. Also, honestly, in a pinch, you can crinkle a receipt, you can do all sorts of things. I'm gonna play again, including using nutty noises. I don't have a slide for this, but you can just listen to me make some nutty noises for a second. They're a tool as well. So not every cat is going to be perfectly attentive, but you can make some weird sounds and get their attention. I think this guy here, Penguin, I had to use a lot of different sounds with him. You know, that might be like making fake kitten noises where you're meow, meow, you know? And some of your cats may perk up at some of these sounds that I'm making. I love it. You'll see how effective they are. A lot of cats like some really obnoxious sounds, like a little fart noise, like a sound. You just make some noises with your mouth. Dogs love that sound too. Sometimes you can get a cute head tilt out of them if you're making the right noise that piques their curiosity. You can do like just like a sound or a purring sort of noise. Cats that are in homes with children or who live in really loud, chaotic households, they're the ones that I have the hardest time with finding what noise works for them, because they're so like chill and not even affected by noises most of the time. And that's why it's important to really experiment and make lots of horrible shrieking noises and like whatever stupid sounds you can make that will startle them and make them go, what the heck is happening over there? That's how you get them to look at you and look at the camera. You have all my secrets. And jumping back real quick between nutty noises and the physical tools of the trade, that's also how you can get a cat to go to a place that you want them to be, typically. You take that wand, coax them over to the chair that you want them to sit in, or if you want them to hop up into a windowsill, drag that over there and make them think, this is psychology here, make them think it's their idea to go to that windowsill or chair or whatever it might be. Because a cat that's as smart as Penguin here, he didn't get in this chair, like I couldn't just set him down in this chair and then expect him to stay. No, he's like, why did you put me here? I don't want to be here. I was on the floor over there. But if I make him think, this is your idea, man, you go over to here, you sit on this chair because you wanted to, you chased this toy, then he'll sit there until I give him a reason to go elsewhere when I take the wand to the other side of the room. All right, we're just running through these. The I in catnip is for iPhones to Instagram, use what you've got. And Android didn't start with an I, sorry to Android users, but you're totally included in this as well, of course. So we're gonna talk about a lot of different aspects of utilizing your phones to the max. So there are a lot of different apps that you can use to edit your photos on your phone. What do I have next here? Well, let's talk about this first. So when you're taking pictures, the first thing you want to do is clean the lens. I know that sounds stupid. I know that sounds like I'm your mom and nagging you to clean up. But yes, really clean the lens. Your phone is in your pocket, your phone is in your purse, you're manhandling it, you probably got fingerprints on there, there might be crumbs or who knows what's on the lens. Just take a second to wipe it off with your t-shirt. It's a huge bummer to take some really great photos and then end up with a big smudge blurring the whole thing, and then shoot, you just lost what would have been an incredible shot if it weren't for that fingerprint. So clean the lens. Tap your screen to control the auto adjust. I'm going to give you an example of this on the next screen. And yes, I know most of these photos here that I'm showing you, they're not on cell phones, but I just wanted to share more cute photos with you. I hope you don't mind. So this one is on a phone, and it's pretty terrible. And it's a little black kitten. It's that Amelia from earlier. This is without the auto adjust that I was talking about. I don't think I've ever seen a cell phone that doesn't have this auto adjust feature. Literally, you don't have to turn anything on that's special on your phone. You just have to tap the screen where you want it to adjust. And this is going to both focus your image properly, and it's going to adjust the lighting and all that stuff to what the camera thinks it should be. Now, this isn't always flawless, so you might have to experiment with it sometimes, and your cat might be moving, so sometimes you might have to refocus and stuff. But when you tap with auto adjust, this is more what you can get. I literally did not edit this. It is the same, as you can see, it is the same angle, but you can tell it's not the same photo edited. She's just so much brighter. Her face is less blurry, it's more in focus. Her buggy, cute little eyes are shiny, and it's just a better shot. Even before I did any editing, anything like that. This is another huge tip for people who are trying to photograph black cats on their phones. When you're photographing a cat on a digital SLR, you're not going to be able to use auto adjust. I recommend definitely like getting used to shooting with manual mode on, because you have so much more control. But again, I could teach a whole other course on that. So we're going to focus on keep on the camera phones. Also, you can use burst mode. Almost every phone has burst mode. Some phones you have to turn it on somewhere in your settings. If you've never used burst mode, and just to pause for a moment, pick up your phone while we're talking and play around with these things while I'm talking. This is I'm not going to think you're rude. Obviously, I can't see you. You could be in your pajamas. I don't know. But grab your phone, and if your cat's there nearby you, go ahead and take pictures of your cat. Take pictures of your kneecap. It doesn't really matter. Your hand in front of your face, and experiment with tapping that auto adjust, using this burst mode that I'm about to mention. All of these tips, just as you go, play around with it. So burst mode will take in rapid fire a whole bunch of photos, often milliseconds apart. If you don't like using burst mode, if you don't want to use burst mode or have that on, you totally don't have to. But if you want to try to take a whole bunch of photos, just tap your shutter really fast. A lot of times burst mode is activated by either holding down your little shutter on the screen, you like hold your finger on it, or if you have it set so your volume button is set as a shutter, you can hold that down too, and you'll hear sometimes it go. That's it taking a whole bunch of photos. And then a lot of times you can tell it which of the photos are your selects, and it will delete the others, or you can manually go through. Either way, it's a good way to get photos that are not of the cat blinking, not of the cat, I don't know, it helps you to miss things you don't want, and it helps you to get things you do want. So if you give your cat a cute treat and she's licking her lips and she looks so silly and you want to get a great photo with her tongue out, using burst mode is going to get you a lot more variety. Or if you want a picture of your cat yawning, something really cute like that, you're going to get more opportunities to get the kind of photo that you'd really like, instead of, oh man, I got the end of that meow and she looks a little bit goofy. You know, you'll just have more opportunities with that. Let's see. That's burst mode. So also find the filters that you like and go ahead and fine tune your image in whatever apps you use. So that can include, there are so many different apps. Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom both have simplified mobile versions. And then there are apps like Snapseed, Pixlr, Visco, and then of course Instagram has added a ton of options for really dialing in your image beyond just using their filters. But even with the filters, you can totally fiddle with those. So yesterday I posted this photo. This is a weirdly long screen recording, but this is me fiddling around with a photo I posted on Instagram yesterday. So this is me. Right now you see there's no filter. I'm fiddling around with the filter and then dialing up and down the intensity of the filters. So what looks best for my face might be different for what looks best for Mao's face. She doesn't look super happy here. She's just grouchy. She's She's a little sassy. Some filters are going to be really unflattering. Like, why was I half green and half orange? I don't know. So you might fiddle around with that and see, does this make my cat look strange? Are there too many highlights, or are the highlights too blown out? You also can go in to the, not even the filter section, but down at the bottom there's edit, and fiddle around with things like bringing up or down your shadows, decreasing or increasing the contrast. There is no wrong or right way to edit your photos, truly, but it's all what you prefer. You can also kind of tint your color or tint your photos with shadows and highlights. Please just take some time to experiment with all this stuff and see what you like. Maybe you really love kind of like a faded vintage look for your photos. That's a really cool, fun look. I tend to prefer really subtle adjustments, so nothing looks super heavily edited. I want things to a lot of times look very much like they do in real life. Sometimes with photos of myself, I like a little bit of more of like a vintagey look, but you really can do whatever you want. And I encourage you so much to go through every single setting in Instagram's menu and see how each of them work. Even if you're not going to post that image to Instagram, just fiddle around with it and see how you like it. And you can tap on pretty much every single setting to adjust the intensity of it and just get familiar with what all those adjustments are about. In that edit menu down there, that's going to also teach you a lot about some photography settings and what you can do if you're using other apps as well. So if you're using like a Snapseed or a Lightroom, it's going to be laid out very different, but they're going to have the same kind of options available to you for adjusting the shadows, or making sure your photo's not too blown out by like decreasing your highlights and balancing things out in that way. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit more ideas for what to do in that regard, with not just like what you do to take a photo, but how you can kind of fine tune it, amp it up, and make it look that much better after the fact. I mentioned before with the slides with black cats, you can bring up the shadows a little bit so that you don't want them to look gray or anything, but you want them to still look really cool and have that contrast a lot of times. But you can bring up the shadows just a touch if it's looking just a little too dark. All right, guys. Let's see. Don't use the whisker killer. What is the whisker killer, guys? Well, it's that feature called portrait mode that is on a lot of newer phones. So this photo here is not taken with a phone. This guy would probably do okay, actually. His name is Julius. He's a client of mine from Portland a while back. He probably would have done okay with the portrait mode because he's so fluffy. Now, what portrait mode does, this is not a photo I took. I had to Google this because I didn't have any, and portrait mode on my phone works a little different than iPhones. But this is what portrait mode does to Whiskers. It works by, this can work really great for people. But with cats, it's, and I think they're coming out with a correction to this because people have been so bummed out about their cats losing their whiskers. This is a little bit of a close-up where you can see it a little better. The portrait mode that is on cell phones works by guessing where the outline of the subject is and then blurring everything else behind it. So you can see there's like kind of like a soft line here where the camera's doing its, or the phone is doing its best job to really figure that out, but it doesn't know what to do with whiskers. So it thinks whiskers are just some like stuff that needs to go away. And anything that sticks out beyond the cat's fur tends to get lost. So again, Julius here, he probably, these whiskers here would not, like, you're kind of not seeing them anyways because there's white behind him, but he's so fluffy, you don't lose a lot, but he would just have the tip of his whiskers lost from this portrait mode. So don't kill your cat's whiskers if you can avoid it. Most phones, if you just tap their face, it's going to give you a little bit of that beautiful shallow depth of field is what that's called, a little bit of that blur behind your cat, just by tapping on their face and letting it focus. You saw that a few slides ago with that foster kitten, Amelia, where she was sitting on my bed. hopefully you remember, I don't want to go back, 10 slides or whatever, but there was a bookcase behind there, there's a bunch of plants behind her, and I didn't have portrait mode turned on. I just tapped her face, and that gave that nice shallow depth of field behind her. Man, oh man, just don't use that whisker killer, I beg of you. So the final P, or the final letter, is P for practice and patience makes perfect. So I'm going to talk a lot about these, and we'll get into, well, actually, you know what? Let's start with the poll. Let's start with that question for you. When you're taking photos, what areas would you like to experiment with more? Well, which one would you like to experiment with most? Maybe you want to try out all of these, So it could be adding more color, capturing more personality, trying out different angles, or unique and interesting compositions. What would bring something to your photos?
So I will say everything has an answer, but overwhelming response is capturing more personality.
Okay, cool. Well, that's great, because I can talk about all these, and we're going to, but I'll definitely focus on making sure that y'all have plenty to do with capturing personality. So first, I am going to talk about color. Y'all remember the color wheel from art class? I bet most of you remember this. It's an awesome visual representation. Well, first, real quick, practicing in all this sense, it doesn't just mean like all these other skills with cleaning and setting the scene, using the tools of the trade. It doesn't mean only practicing with all those above skills over and over. It means getting creative and experimenting. There are tons of ways to play around with your photography, and these are just a handful of examples. So the color wheel, jumping back to it. It's a great visual representation of how the colors kind of play off of one another. Colors that are directly across from one another, like blue and orange, for example, are they tend to make the opposite color pop out more, but can also be fun to play around with a variety of hues in a particular section of the wheel, like kind of maybe greens and yellows, like this. There's a lot of green and yellow in his eyes and in this pillow. Even his face has some kind of like yellowy orange shade. So this is a really pretty way to play with this color. You can also do like just your cat's probably, there's no color in your cat that is purple or like a deep blue typically. Most cats, excuse me, most cats are more of a neutral shade, but playing with color is really fun. There's actually a whole lot of color theory and color psychology that's really interesting to learn about too. For example, the color red's very energizing, and pastel green or pink is typically quite calming, so you can play with that in your photos. There's symbolism and cultural meanings to different colors, but you can research that on your own. There's so much. But with the color wheel in mind, you can do things like play around with accenting a cat's eye color, or just using whatever colors that you like best to surround them and draw your eye to your subject. So here you can see playing off of these colors. It's not an exact match, it's just some stuff that's really fun. Let's see here. We've got a lot going on with these guys here. All these are kind of yellowy colors, but down here we've also got her and her blue eye. She's got heterochromia, where she's got two different color eyes, and she's looking great on the blue chair. Here we've got even more color. I just checked the time and I'm like, oh man, I've just yammered on. So we're gonna go through these pretty quick. I don't want to keep you here forever. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go over time a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't put a damper in your day. But more great stuff and more learning for you, right? I hope so. So these guys are all different cats that I photographed in different homes. Some of them are foster kittens and some of them are clients. And we played around with contrast with this one. This one, we've got a cat with her eyes hadn't changed colors yet, but we've got some like of this bluey purple color echoed here in this, or you can have something that's more poppy and contrasty. Whole variety of colors here. And this would normally be a little bit overwhelming if there were this many colors just throughout a room, probably. Like here it's very simple, but if we had like a whole bunch of stuff in the background with like a neon green cat toy or like hot pink, it'd probably be distracting. But since this is just surrounding him, your eye really goes to his face, and the blue that's echoed, it really makes his eyes pop. So this is really fun. This here, I will say, is a just a piece of fabric that I have. I keep little pieces of fabric and pillowcases and such in my photo kit for occasions like this, where I think it'll just bring a little something extra to the image. She still would have been cute sitting on the bedspread with a pink pillow in the background, but this just makes it a little bit more visually interesting. And this is also a cute way to bring in your cat's personality, because this cat, I forget what her name was, but she was in a litter of 3 where they were named after flowers. And so this wasn't my foster kitten, it was a friend's. So having flowers, like a little floral subtle print there, was a cute way to kind of pay homage to that. Here's where you can really get into personality with, this was little Sawyer with his favorite mouse toy and his favorite bow tie, and we amplified, or like we played around with the colors with this chair, his bow tie, and this blanket thrown over the back of the chair, so he could really pop out. Super cute. This guy here is Desmond, and he belongs to a fabulous cat behaviorist named Samantha Bell. She's taught Desmond to wave and give high fives. So here he is showing us all how handsome and smart he is. And then these 2 images here are both of that foster kitten that I mentioned before, Cheeto, from way earlier on in the presentation. It's a great example here of using whatever stuff you've got around the house to accent your cat, whether it's holiday decor. It could be something like cute that is like something that has to do with your favorite sports team that's more about your personality. Or you can focus on taking like expressive photos where he's just being silly and he's making like a goofy face, and that's just his personality in a nutshell. So it just delights me every time I see that photo. You can play around with super close-ups of your cat's face, their eyes, their nose, whiskers, paws. Cats are just cool looking, and so you can have a lot of fun with changing up your angles and all of that stuff. With their personalities, sometimes a cat just looks at you and you think like, I don't know, they're just looking at me. But figure out, what is it about your cat that makes them special? Are they really chill? Are they really energetic? Are they sassy? Are they, I don't know, do they have a signature pose? Or are they prone to loafing and you want to get a cute photo of them loafing? That can be a signature pose. You want to play around with that sort of stuff as a way to capture their personality. And then we've got playing around with some different composition and other ways to make photos interesting. All of this kind of overlaps because there's still some color involved in that last section and in this one, but there's also playing around with like showing off different aspects of their personalities and yours. So this was for a friend who's also a client. She's a writer, and so this Winner Winner Chicken Dinner is the cat's name, and this is her beloved typewriter. And this is a really cool way to just like show off her 2 favorite things in one image. Cats who like being around plants. This is a playful kind of way to like feature your cat kind of hiding, peekabooing behind something, especially if you have like a more shy cat. That can be a fun way to do things. This cat, really, really awesome cat named Macgyver that I photographed. And reflections are a really fun thing to do. I'm surprised you can't see me in this little centerpiece thing. But you can play around with having fun with that. You can put them in things. You can put them in boxes, put a kitten in a cup, put them in a flower pot, put them in your hands like little Mouse here. Mouse was so tiny, and so we wanted to emphasize that part of who he is. And he's grown now. He's a much bigger boy, but he took forever to get big. So yeah, that's a lot of the composition stuff. So we blasted through, guys. We blasted through. We've reached the end. But before we take questions, I want to talk a little bit about, let's see how well you were paying attention toward the beginning. So let's throw up that last poll question. So if modeling guru, this is a little silly one, Tyra Banks were here to give advice to your furry top model, which would she recommend most? Would she say for them to smize, which is smiling with your eyes, don't lose your neck, always find your light. Don't over accessorize. Take that necklace off, it's too much. Or to tooch the booty. It's not supposed to say touch, tooching the booty is when you kind of pop it out. So what do you think what Tyra Banks would say?
Overwhelmingly, it is always find your light.
Ding, 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 that is correct. Y'all were paying attention, amazing job. Again, that, like I said, is the number one thing, find your light. Whether it's a kitten, a cat, a dog, a person, they're not gonna look good if they have bad light. You won't, they won't, you always wanna find the light. So I hope that you've learned a lot today. I know we'll maybe we can take a couple of questions. We'll see what Michelle thinks, but I hope you've learned a lot today. I know it's been a lot of info in a super short time frame. So watch your email inbox if you want to rewatch the recording of this webinar later on. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram if you're not already. And definitely tag me in your photos or stories if you learned something today, or if you want to share your photos with me using these tips. Obviously, I like cats, so it would be an absolute delight to see how I've helped y'all to photograph your babies in a cool new way.
All right, so Erica, I've got 2 questions before we sign off. So you mentioned light. So would a daylight lamp be okay to use for lighting?
Absolutely. I think that you want to experiment with it for sure. Try using just the daylight lamp itself, and also try using that with actual daylight and see how that looks, because the daylight lamp color temperature might be just right so that you can have a bright window and the daylight lamp at the same time and have it look like there's 2 windows essentially, or it might be slightly different. You might find you only like using just the lamp. So yeah, definitely experiment with that, because that could be great.
Okay, so is there a cost-effective camera that you recommend for beginners?
I assume that they mean like an entry-level fancy camera.
Yes.
I would say, I mean, there's so many. It really depends on who you ask. I've always shot Canon. I don't have like a particular loyalty to Canon for like specific reasons other than I've always shot with them, but they have a really great beginners line called the Rebel series. That they put out a bunch of different Canon Rebel X blah blah blah, Canon Rebel insert number here, and a lot of those are really awesome for a beginner to start learning and experimenting with. And I will say though, it's a lot less about the camera body. You don't need to buy the most expensive camera body to like really hone in your skills and to really like get good at photography, as much as investing in a really high quality lens will help you. The kit lens is fun, but a lens that is better in a lower light situation is going to give you a lot more flexibility for photographing indoors than the kit lens does. So do some research on that, and you may even talk to some folks at like a camera shop and go from there.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us all this information. I have a black cat, so I'm going to take some of what I learned. I thought I was taking some good photos of him, but I was actually looking through my photos, and I'm guilty of using portrait mode. So I've killed the whiskers on my cat. I've noticed in some of these photos that I have of him. So I'm going to try not to do that anymore. But I do know that I do get foster babies of all kinds of colors, and gingers have been one of our favorites, and trying to take good pictures of them to put out there as well.
And so, now you have so many more secrets and tips to get really great shots.
I do, and now I'm super excited to share my photos with you too and see, kind of get an opinion. I did put all of your handles in the chat box for everybody, and I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. You're going to get a copy of this recording tomorrow, because I know there was a lot of information to digest, but thank you, Erica, so much for joining us, and we hope to see you in the future.
Thanks so much for having me, and thank you all for being here. I'm so excited and so happy, and I hope this helps everybody to photograph their cats and do some really great stuff in their communities with photographing.
Yeah, especially, and even overseas. We have a viewer here from France today.
Yay! Hello, France.
We're making an impact all over the world, Erica.
I love it.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.